How to play Legend in the Mist. Son of Oak Game Studios has recently released a new tabletop role-playing game, Legend in the Mist. This game is inspired by the rustic fantasy genre. However, it's versatile enough in its mechanics to be easily adaptable to a variety of different ones. Throughout this video, I'll do my best to explain how this game works and how you can play it. However, before we do that, let's explain just in case what a tabletop role-playing game even is in the first place. These games, also known as TTRPGs for short, are essentially collaborative storytelling in the form of a board game. Here, one of the players will take the role usually known as the Game Master, or in this case, the narrator, whose job it is to establish the setting where the story will take place, to interpret its inhabitants, and to place within it some manner of goal to be accomplished, conflict to be resolved, or threat to be overcome by the story's protagonist, who will, of course, be the characters interpreted by the rest of the players, usually of their own creation. These characters are known in this game as heroes. A story will therefore begin to form naturally as the players interpret and describe their characters' actions and the way they interact with the setting, while the narrator responds by describing the effects of their actions, how they help or hinder their objectives, and the impact they have on the setting itself. Now, let's begin explaining the game itself, starting with its roles. Most TTRPGs include rolling dice as a way to determine the outcome of any actions that have a big enough chance of failure. In Legend in the Mist, this is decided by rolling two 6-sided dice. A combined result of 6 or less is a complete failure, with negative consequences. A 7 to a 9 is a partial success, and still has some negative consequences, while a result of 10 or higher is a complete success without negative consequences whatsoever. These rolls are usually affected by a modifier called power. Power is represented by a numerical value which can be increased or decreased by tags, statuses, and occasionally by the character's might. The exceptions are double 1s and double 6s, which will always result in a complete failure and a complete success respectively, regardless of the roll's power. Now, let's explain actions. Anything a hero does is an action. However, depending on what it is, it may fall within one out of 4 different categories within this game. Simple actions are considered easy enough to not require rolling dice to succeed. Quick actions are fast and straightforward, yet considered difficult enough to require a roll. Reactions are actions taken to mitigate negative consequences obtained because of a bad roll or because one failed to address a threat correctly. Reactions also require rolling dice to succeed, and they happen right as the negative consequences are obtained. Detailed actions are difficult enough to require a roll. However, unlike quick actions, there is no simple outcome upon success. Rather, the player must create the effects of their action by spending the roll's power on various options. A successful detailed action roll with negative power or no power at all will count as having a power of 1 for spending purposes. Some effects power can be spent on are, for the price of 1 power, discovering information, deleting a story tag, creating a single-use story tag, creating a status, or leveling it 1 level up or down. Meanwhile, for the price of 2 power, one may create a multiple-use story tag. A player may also choose to spend 1 power to make an additional action before the narrator goes on to focus on another player's hero. Now, this explanation contains a lot of concepts that we have yet to explain, so let's go on to explain them next. For example, what are tags? Well, tags are short phrases that describe characteristics, physical elements, characters, or situations within the story. Any number of tags describing things relevant to an action may be invoked by either the player or the narrator to add a +1 per tag to the roll's power if they are helpful, or a -1 per tag if they are hindering. There are many types of tags, but the 3 main ones are power tags, weakness tags, and story tags. Power tags describe different aspects of the heroes, and are always helpful if relevant. They may be temporarily sacrificed to add a +3 power to a roll instead of the usual one. Weakness tags describe negative aspects of a hero and are always hindering if relevant. Meanwhile, story tags are temporary tags which may describe the environment as well as the objects and non-player characters within it. Statuses, on the other hand, are temporary tags that describe physical or mental conditions that affect a character, group, object, or the environment. A status can go from level 1 to level 6 and may be invoked by either the player or the narrator to add or decrease the power of a roll an amount equal to the status's level. Only one relevant helpful status and one relevant hindering one may be invoked during a roll. If a hero receives a status that reaches level 6, it will usually result in a permanent or long-lasting effect of the narrator's choice. Now that we have explained the basic concepts in Legend in the Mist, we can go on to explain character creation. A character in Legend in the Mist is mostly made up of 4 theme cards. Each theme card represents a specific aspect of a hero: their backstory, their abilities, their skills, their powers, their possessions, or their connections, and each one is made up of 5 parts: the theme's might, the theme's type, the theme's tags, the theme's quest, and what I like to call its advancement tracks. Let's go on to explain these concepts. A theme's might represents how powerful or impressive that aspect of the hero is, and can have one of 3 levels. Origin is the might level for themes that are normal, common, or mundane. Adventure is the might level for themes that are powerful or impressive enough to set them apart from most ordinary people. And Greatness is the might level for themes that are world-shaping in scale, be it literally or metaphorically, or otherwise considered among the best of the best. In some situations, a theme's might cause a hero to be over or underqualified for a specific action. This difference between the hero's might and the might necessary will affect the role's power, increasing it or decreasing it by an additional 3 of power for every might level of difference. Theme types are categories meant to identify what kind of aspect of a hero is represented in a theme. Most types are divided by their recommended, though optional, might levels in the way shown on screen. As for the theme's tags, a theme card must possess 3 power tags and 1 weakness tag. Both concepts we've already explained. The first power tag is the main one, acting as a title of sorts, while the other 2 expand upon the first one by adding further information or specifying important details. The weakness tag, on the other hand, must be some kind of limiting factor that actively hinders a theme. As for the theme's quests, each of them has to be some kind of mission, necessity, personal value, or philosophy that dictates, guides, governs, or serves as the basis of the theme in question. A hero's adherence to their quests, or lack thereof, will have a direct impact on their themes through their advancement tracks. Said advancement tracks, as I call them, are 3 sets of 3 checkboxes at the bottom of every theme card, which dictate how the theme in question changes according to the hero's decisions. These are Abandon, Improve, and Milestone. A player marks an abandon box in a theme card whenever they take an important or significant enough action that goes against that theme's quest. However, if said action was in fulfillment of the quest instead, they mark a milestone box. Improve boxes, on the other hand, are marked whenever a character overcomes their shortcomings by succeeding at an action where a weakness tag was involved. If a theme ever reaches 3 abandons, it must be completely discarded and replaced to show how that theme no longer represents a defining part of the hero's character. On the other hand, every time a theme reaches 3 milestones, it will evolve or grow in some way, changing its wording, type, and or might to reflect the way the hero has been impacted positively or negatively by that part of their character. Every time a theme reaches 3 improvements, the player may develop the theme further, through effects such as, for example, adding or removing a tag of the player's choice, or resetting abandons, milestones, or both. Now, if you want to see a character created with these rules, you need to look no further than to Garen, the protagonist of the Legend in the Mist tutorial comic, which you may find included in the core rulebook or downloadable for free at sodafolk.com. I greatly recommend it if you want to get a feel as to how this game actually plays.